leave it to Seth Rollins to reignite one of the most heated rivalries in modern wrestling. Just when you think the Seth Rollins vs. CM Punk drama is dying down, it sparks back to life with a vengeance. If you believed their beef was over, you're sorely mistaken, because Seth recently went hard at Punk yet again, and this time, his words cut deeper than ever. This isn't just some recent grudge. The animosity between these two goes way back, before CM Punk's big return to WWE, before the Survivor Series moment, even before AEW. In fact, the tension was already simmering when Punk was still with AEW, and Rollins didn't mince words. He called Punk a cancer and made it abundantly clear that he didn't want him anywhere near WWE. Then came Survivor Series, November 2023. The unthinkable happened. CM Punk made his shocking return to WWE, and it lit the entire wrestling world on fire. While fans erupted with excitement, Rollins? Not so much. In fact, he lost his cool, and many wondered if that was just a storyline or if there was real emotion behind the meltdown. Truth is, it was likely both. The drama wasn't just for the cameras, there's a very real bitterness there. Fast forward to 2025, Punk and Rollins were part of a major storyline, going head-to-head on the very first episode of Monday Night Raw after its historic move to Netflix. The match? Electric. But the tension? Even more explosive. The two would go on to share the ring again at WrestleMania, this time in a high-stakes triple threat match involving none other than Roman Reigns. That match, like much of this feud, left unfinished business hanging in the air. Now, things have escalated further. Seth Rollins has found new allies, Paul Heyman, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed, while CM Punk has been working alongside Sami Zayn and standing opposite Roman Reigns. The alliances make things even more tangled, more personal, and more combustible, but the true fire at the center of the storm remains Punk and Rollins. Recently, Seth appeared on the Up Adams show hosted by Kay Adams and reignited the war of words. And when I say he went in on Punk, I mean he absolutely torched him. His words weren't veiled, they weren't diplomatic, they were as raw as it gets. Seth said, "CM Punk is not good for what we do. He's a bad dude. He's not a good dude. I dealt with CM Punk for too long." He went even further, saying, "This guy shouldn't even be in my win space. I want him gone. I want him out of here." Harsh? Yes. Surprising? Not really. But it does raise an important question: why does Seth Rollins hate CM Punk this much? Because when you look at the public exchanges, it seems pretty one-sided. Punk hasn't fired back with the same venom, so what's really behind Seth's deep-seated resentment? To understand that, you have to rewind the clock back to the early 2010s, when Punk was on top of WWE. He reportedly pitched the idea for a faction. He wanted his own group and had some names in mind. According to multiple sources, Punk pushed for Chris Hero, known as Cassius Ohno in WWE, as well as Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, now Jon Moxley, and yes, Seth Rollins. WWE went along with the idea, but not all of it. They nixed Hero from the group, despite Punk's insistence, and kept the rest. What was born out of that decision was the Shield, a faction that ended up becoming one of the most iconic groups in WWE history. But here's the twist: they were initially supposed to be Punk's bodyguards. That was the vision, until the Shield became so popular that WWE decided to break them off into their own force, separate from Punk entirely. Not long after, in 2014, CM Punk left WWE. The exit was messy. He was reportedly frustrated with the company, burned out, and feeling disrespected. He walked out right after the Royal Rumble and was fired by WWE, famously on his wedding day. That left a sour taste for many in the locker room, but for Rollins, it felt personal. By 2014, Rollins was on the rise. He had just won the Money in the Bank briefcase and was being groomed for the main event scene. 2015 became his breakout year when he cashed in that briefcase at WrestleMania, becoming WWE Champion by pinning Roman Reigns in the middle of a match involving Brock Lesnar. While Rollins was grinding his way up the ladder, Punk was gone. Rollins has said openly that he didn't respect how Punk left. To him, it wasn't just Punk walking away from Vince McMahon, it was Punk walking away from them, from the boys in the locker room, from the people who showed up every day to work through bad creative and tough conditions. Rollins has said, "He bailed on us when we needed him," and that comment cuts to the core of his anger. The early post-Punk years were brutal for WWE. Creative was struggling, star power was thin, The company was desperate for dependable main event talent. Rollins was there, Reigns was there, Ambrose was there, but it was a grind. They were being asked to fill massive shoes, and while Punk had already made his name, made his money, and could afford to walk away, Rollins and others couldn't. That's the difference. Punk had options, Rollins didn't. He had to tough it out, wrestle through injuries, survive weak storylines, and try to become a top-tier star through sheer effort. So when Punk walked, it felt like a betrayal not just to the company, but to the brotherhood. The locker room. That protect the boys mindset is old school, but for many like Rollins, it's still sacred. To Rollins, Punk didn't just abandon WWE, he abandoned them. And let's be honest, there's probably some professional jealousy mixed in there. Punk, despite all the controversy, still commands headlines. His return was treated like the second coming. The crowd reactions, the promo attention, the merch sales, it's all still massive. For someone like Rollins, who's been loyal, who's stayed the course, who's sacrificed for this company, watching Punk swoop back in and get that kind of attention, that stings. Add to that the fact that Punk has always marched to the beat of his own drum, never really caring to fit in or play politics, and it's easy to see why Rollins just can't let it go. And maybe he never will. At this point, it feels highly unlikely that Punk and Rollins will ever be friends. The animosity runs deep, but from a business standpoint, the feud is gold. WWE knows it, fans know it, and even Rollins and Punk probably know it. Which brings us to what's next. We're almost certainly going to get another CM Punk vs. Seth Rollins match. In fact, SummerSlam seems like the perfect place for it. WWE could book it as a main event on night 1, with Roman Reigns vs. CM Punk headlining night 2. That way, Punk works double duty, and the company capitalizes on 2 massive marquee matches. There are so many events coming up: Night of Champions, Saturday night's main event, and of course, SummerSlam. WWE can choose how they want to pace this out, but make no mistake, the endgame is clear. Rollins and Punk have unfinished business, and before we get to Punk vs. Roman, we need to settle Punk vs. Rollins once and for all. Because even if the hatred is real, even if the wounds never heal, it's too compelling a story to leave unfinished. So what do you think? Is Seth Rollins justified in his comments about CM Punk? Is this all just bitterness from the past? Or is Rollins speaking the truth that no one else in WWE wants to say out loud? Let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned. This rivalry is far from over.